So I hear that your dad passes away, and I text you that day or the next day, and I said, hey, listen, I'm sorry to hear about your dad's passing, sending love from our family to yours. And you wrote, thank you, Will. To be honest, I blame Bateman.
For the death of my father.
The day after his father dies.
Yeah.
Right. So I wrote, it's not a terrible theory. And Conan texted me back, he killed my dad.
Oh my God!
Okay.
My dad, can I say, in fairness, my dad would have loved this.
Okay. So then Bateman, I tell Bateman this, we're doing a thing that day. So the next day, Bateman texts you and he says, Arnett tells me you're on to me.
Yes.
And Conan texts Bateman and he says, Bateman, do yourself a favor, turn yourself in. Right? Right?
Yeah.
2 days after your dad passes, of course, your mom passed away.
Yeah, which I did not see coming.
Which you did not see coming. So I text you 2 days after. I knew you were in Boston. I said, Bateman is asking for your sister's street address.
Oh, to have good friends like that. Mega mergers. We've had the hint happening here, and mega mergers of equals are in the news, and member votes are stalled, and banks are easily bought by cash to shareholders with no emotional turmoil like we're going through. But what's the easiest or best way forward? This panel is going to explore new ways to save charters, expand the digital de novos, the credit union management agreements, and fractional CEOs. Board members find new succession planning, putting their egos aside and truly moving the needle. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Oliver, the CEO of Rise Credit Union. Aaron Mendez, the CEO of Patelco Credit Union. And Steve Castagna, the Chief Revenue Officer for Acuvo. Thank you, guys. And Steve, take it away.
Begin? Yes, please. All right. I have to say quick, who thought Kyle's explanation or analogy of a stable coin to a Vegas chip is phenomenal? I heard that in Vegas last year. I was like, my God, I finally understand it. So I actually thought I was going to be following you ladies when I went through this, but I'll kick off in a way that says, so there's a lot of activity happening with the mergers, as we all know. And you hear about that, you think about it, and then you look at what's going on with fintechs. And I obviously represent Acuvo, a fintech supporting the credit union industry. And a lot of times when a fintech takes an investment from a private equity firm, a venture capital, or some sort of other investment vehicle, there's a notion that, oh, they sold out. That's bad. How's that going to now serve the credit union industry? How's it going to serve our credit union? But I think there's an assumption that we need to challenge that looks at that and says, if we're looking at that, what's the reason? What's the motive for that investment? Why did they do that? And we need to take a look at that. So let me give you an example. Every year there's two, or you want me to look up a little bit higher? Oh, higher, bring it up higher, gotcha. So every year there is dozens of fintechs that are created throughout the industry to serve and build or fix challenges that we're all experiencing. And that's a good thing. But what happens with those fintechs, because we're in a heavily regulated industry, they have to use a lot of capital to build out their teams, to build out the engineering, the development arm, the SDLC, the marketing, the implementation team, the support team, the sales and marketing, everything that's needed to support that fintech and take that to market so that you're looking at it and saying it's a stable operation, someone that we can trust, someone that we can build a partnership and move forward with. So there's a lot that goes on with that. As an example, last year, it was the largest year for investments by private equity firms. $18.5 billion was invested into fintechs. But interesting enough, it was actually a decrease in the number of deals by only 40%. And I think the reason is the private equity firms are looking at this and saying, we need to be more selective. We need to look at fintechs that are looking at the industry, have a proven track record, have the ability to deliver on what they say their vision is going to be, and they're going to be around. Also, I think we did a nice little study on here this week, and we looked at the software companies. So hopefully we're all going to be going around to the exhibit hall and taking a look at all the people that are going to be there. And there's about 100 software vendors that are part of the exhibit hall. How many do you think have some sort of private equity backing or some sort of venture capital banking? 20%? 40%? We think it's actually about 60% of all the software companies that are there at the exhibit hall this week have some sort of PE or venture capital backing. So we need to look at that as an industry and say, there's something going on. There's the reason why this is happening, but it's not just a bad thing. It can be a good thing. I'll give you the example of Akuvo. So when we started in 2020, we knew we were going to be a QSO. We knew we wanted to have credit unions a part at the table and help us understand and advise where we need to make sure our direction and our vision for Akuvo is going to take us. And 7 credit unions stepped up and began with a funding round. And they played a critical role. They really helped us look at what we're doing, double check, make sure we're going in the right direction. And that helped us for the first few years. But then as digital and our data presence started to grow, we knew we had to take on additional investment. And we asked back to those 7 early investors to come back to the table. By the way, one of them was Launch, who just announced the merger with Suncoast, so they're growing. But one of the other ones that we took in was Circle. And Circle brought in a whole new level of investment and guidance and advisory that really gave us a different look at how we need to make sure that we're growing and moving in the right direction. So then fast forward, and then we all started hearing 2024 and 2025, this thing called AI. How are we going to develop and innovate with AI? We knew we had ideas for it, but we knew we also didn't have maybe the expertise that we needed. So how do we approach that? How do we look at that world and say, what are we going to do? We started looking for a partner, and the partner we found was Vista Equity Partners, a private equity firm, global, worldwide known, a very large player. What they brought to our table was expertise that we didn't have, and the ability to move very quickly in a world that we knew we had to move quickly to, but allowed us to bring AI-enabled platform to the market much, much faster. So now, as we look at that and we sit back and say, what does this mean? What do we kind of take from this? I think we're looking at an industry that says, challenge ourselves and say, as the fintechs are growing, there's a reason why. They have to take in capital to grow in this heavily regulated environment, and they need that support. So I challenge the industry, take a look at how these credit unions are using fintechs, look at those that are investing in fintechs, be a part of the investment, but then also be a part of the customers that are utilizing those fintechs. So those fintechs look back and say, I see a demand. I see that the credit union movement needs fintechs like myself, and we're going to be able to continue to grow together and thrive together. So I'll leave you with that.
Great, thank you. Well, this is an underground, and it's kind of hard to sit here after being here all afternoon, but I want to know from this audience, how many of you have merger plans in your strategy? Raise your hand. Come on. Some of you do. I know it. Because that's what credit unions have been kind of conditioned to do. We know how to go at it alone, or we know how to merge. But how many of you guys are thinking about alternate models? What are you doing to experiment out there to think about other ways? I can't believe we just had a regulator up here, by the way, who said credit unions matter. Charters matter. Wasn't that awesome? We have unique value propositions that we bring to the table every single day. And credit union charters matter. So when you merge them away, is there a way to keep those charters alive? So I would say we have to think a little bit more like a brand. I think we went through a branding exercises. We changed our name, so it's kind of fresh on my mind. But Rise Credit Union is a brand. We're not just a credit union. Yeah, we have the same last name. We built for people, by people, but we are a brand that means something. Think about some of these other players out there. Lexus, Toyota. You guys, who has a Lexus? Anybody? No? Toyota? Yeah? They're the same engine though. They really are. They're backed by the same engine driving a different brand of car. What can we learn from other retail environments out there? How can we be just a little different? Marriott, Ritz-Carlton, same as a Courtyard. I stay at Courtyards all the time. And I really do like to stay at Ritz every once in a while. It's really, really nice. But it's all the same back-end engine. It's on the same Marriott app, for crying out loud. Yet you know the experience is going to be different. So is there an opportunity to think something a little different outside of the norm for our industry? Sarah said something about collaboration is hard. It is hard. Man, I've been a collaborator all my life, want to get involved, want to get shit done, as Susan says. I want to do that all the time, but it really gets hard in a room when you get together and you start to talk about how to really execute on these ideas. So what can we do in this underground to do something different and challenge the norm? That's what I'm asking all of you. Erin?
So when you think about credit union models, I'm going to be very old-fashioned, so I'm going to buck the system of the underground already. But it's really simple to me. What uniqueness are you creating in your model that makes a difference in your community and it makes a difference to the people? So that is never going to change. You can put any spin on the latest technology on that. You can put any spin on the latest lingo on it. But your model that you pick has got to resonate very specifically with whom you're trying to connect with. Whether you do that through a merger, whether you do it through partnerships, and Patelco, I'll tell you, we have lots of fintech partnerships, we have lots of QSO investments, but we only invest in those that we're going to use. That's just a personal philosophy. And it has to support who we believe our mission is and what we're trying to do and what our niche or our uniqueness is in a world of blurrity. Because that's what we live in, is a world of blurrity. And so when you talk about brand, you have to talk about how do I, in 5 seconds or less, distinguish myself so I'm talking to those people, not the masses. So when you think about models and those things, you don't have to be restricted in the old-fashioned way of how you do it. But some of those concepts are going to live with you and should live with you. And how do you reach those things in such a way that mergers are great, but organic great? I always say mergers are great, but organic growth is better. And that's because people are choosing you for what you're saying you're here to do, and they want you to do it with them. So that would be my advice.
I know one of the things we're supposed to talk about up here is fractional leadership. Do you have any fractional leaders at your organization?
I wish we did. We could use them.
Yeah. Erin, do you have any fractional leadership?
Other than me?
Other than you.
We have no, we don't actually. We probably grapple with those kinds of concepts. And, I think as humans, you end up thinking it's easier if I can manage this than that. And I think the fractional aspects of things do create some complexities that maybe the next generation can solve.
Well, I'm hoping that we're actually going to solve it today. So I came, a lot of guys know me, I came from a credit union, $150 million credit union, and now I'm blessed to be at a $1.3 billion credit union. And, what I find is the strategies are the same. You talked about that being unique to your customer base. Your members rewarding you with organic growth because they know who you are and you've spoken to them somehow or another. And so the strategies are generally the same. It's the execution of those strategies that becomes very different. When I was a CEO for a $150 million credit union, I didn't have a chief marketing officer, a chief growth officer, a chief innovation officer, a chief I was all it. Yeah. I was all it. It was dilutive, right? Yeah. Because you don't get to do the things that you really need to do. I was literally crawling under the desks, fixing PCs for everybody so they could do their jobs, right? So there is opportunities to potentially use resources differently. So back in 2019, I pitched the idea to my very, very smart board of directors at that time, was this idea around fractional leadership. And of course, I was going to lead it, and I was going to be a fractional CEO. I had already lined up a fractional chief marketing officer and a chief risk officer to kind of, start the model. Of course, I left the credit union, went off to save a credit union back in New York on one of my mission-driven exercises of why credit unions matter. But with that idea, I never let that go. The reason I was a CEO looking for fractional leaders is because I couldn't afford the marketing officer. I couldn't afford the innovation officer. But you know what? Every credit union needs those roles, right? So luckily, when I came back from my mission-driven exercise and a conservatorship, I came to Rise Credit Union, and guess what? I hired the chief marketing officer because I could afford it now, right? It was awesome, and it made such a difference in how you can execute on brand and vision, right? And we now have 2 chief technology officers. One is focused strictly on the core operations. He is the master of Scimitar. If you ever know Juan Luna, he's been a Scimitar fan for a long, long time. Yes. And but I wouldn't have been able to get Juan Luna on my team because he was at a $4.5 billion credit union. So how could I have possibly have done that, right? So I hired Juan Luna as our fractional leadership. I also have. I'm blessed to have a chief innovation and technology officer in George Estrada, many of you know from AWS. I got Amazon in my shop, guys. I'm so excited. It's so exciting. But, it's this idea that you can build talent in your pool even if you can't afford it necessarily one-on-one. Competitive marketplaces, compensation, we were talking about it. We've created a model where you can get that talent in the organization to really propel you forward. And boy, do I feel it. 6 months in, we are moving and hauling butt. So it's pretty exciting, this idea around this fractional leadership. The CUS model, I'll just do a quick plug there, is actually perpetuating the fractional C-suite model through that CUS model. And so I would encourage any of you guys, if you're interested in exploring what that could mean for you, talk to CUS, talk to us, and we're happy to share.
But, let me add to that a little bit. You pick the right business partners, and they will augment your intelligence.
Absolutely.
At every level of the organization. So you have to think beyond your inner walls and how you use your external in as part of them solving solutions with you. So you may call that another form of fractional leadership, but I do think you have to use the power of every touch point that you have to bring the power back into your organization.
And I think what Sue and team are doing with CUS, and I encourage as many of you that can stay afterwards to listen to what's happening, it's brilliant what's happening. And I think the partners that are part of that are really progressing a lot of the ideas that we just heard here. So I encourage and support everything that the CUS movement's doing.